Hello, welcome to more yoga with me, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're doing well. Um, Today, so the last class, at least the last recorded class we did, we worked the upper back, right? Getting into the shoulders, upper back a little bit. Today, we're going to get into the front of the shoulders and the chest. So, some things that would be really useful for you today: a strap, if you have one. If you don't have one, you could use a belt as long as it's long enough. Or if you don't have one of those, if you could get a piece of rope or even something solid like a broom handle, minus the broom on the end, unless you don't mind having dust flying around, or a dowel or anything like that. Something that is about this long minimum that can give you a little bit of opening through the shoulders. And the other thing that could be really useful is a pillow if you don't have blocks. And that's where we're going to start with setting up today, is a supported fish pose. So if you choose to use a pillow or a bolster, you could just bring it onto the mat and then lie back on it so that the chest and the shoulders get a little bit of opening. I'm going to show you a variation that uses two blocks. It's called also supported fish. I've also heard like chest cracker. Sounds a little bit violent for yoga, but what you would do is essentially set up your blocks like a T. One of them starting at the base of the shoulder blades, and then one underneath the head on whatever height feels best for you. That takes a little bit of practice getting into. So if you're not used to doing it, maybe don't worry about it and grab a pillow, because you really don't want this quite low down into the mid back or even the low back. You want that first block right in between the shoulder blades. And then second block, again, wherever you want to support your head. Now, these cork blocks are quite firm and it can feel super uncomfortable. So if you have cork blocks too, you could drape a blanket or a towel or something over top if you're feeling like you like the lift, but not the digginess of them. And then wrap your shoulder blades toward each other. Maybe you choose to take a butterfly position with the legs. Some people really like that. Soles of the feet together, knees wide. Or maybe the knees stay bent wherever you need to be. And then for a few breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more. And then continue breathing however you need to, whether it's in and out through your nose or your mouth. Notice how your breath is flowing, how it feels. Maybe it feels a little bit more open and spacious here in this position. Maybe it feels sticky or choppy because the air is full of pollen. If you notice some sticky or choppy spots in the breath, you might gently try to lengthen through those parts, and that can help smooth it out a bit. A few more breaths here. And you're welcome to pause the video and stay here longer if you wish. Otherwise, you have a couple options for coming out of this. One is to roll to one side, remove the blocks or bolster or pillow out from underneath you, and then come onto your back. Or just lift up enough that you can remove the blocks out from underneath you and then come down onto your back for a few breaths, or it might feel like you're falling through the floor. And then start to bring a little bit of movement back to your body. Whatever way feels best here for you to wake up. Maybe a little wiggle of the fingertips or toes. Or maybe you feel ready for some larger movement, drawing your knees in toward your chest, a little rock from side to side. And then maybe it feels good for you to grab the backs of the thighs and start to rock and roll up and down your spine, maybe shoulder blades to sit bones, etc. Or if that doesn't feel good, you can roll to one side and press yourself up. But then let's meet on hands and knees, taking the time to set up however you need to set up, with knees underneath hips, toes can be tucked or untucked, hands out or shoulder width apart, or a wider little draw of belly button to spine. And on your inhale, lift the tailbone to the sky, hollow through the lower back, broaden through your collarbones, coming into cow. Exhale, tuck your tailbone under, round through your spine, really press the floor away into cat. Inhale into cow. Exhale, round into cat. So a few more of these beautiful spinal undulations on your own time, on your own breath. As always, if there's any other natural movement that you'd like to take here, feel free to add on, whether it's a wag of the tail from side to side or barrel rolls through the chest or shoulders. You might snake toward the floor. Just go wherever you need to go. You're really starting to develop the ability to listen to your body and move the way it wants you to move. And then slowly come back to center. Now, depending on where you are on your mat, you might walk your hands forward or shuffle your knees back a little bit, just to give yourself space. We're going to slowly start to send the hips back. Keep them high, though, as you start to melt the heart toward the floor. So melting heart pose, puppy dog pose, a few different names for this, but it's not child's pose. So the hips stay high, right? We're getting a little bit of leverage here to get into the armpits and the chest. Now you might hover it out. You have a pillow or a block. Maybe you bring it underneath the forehead. Maybe the forehead naturally comes to the floor. And then you can adjust how far away the arms are. But I'd like you to keep them quite active. So we're not just resting all of our weight on our forehead, right? A little press of the palms away from you and into the earth. A few more breaths here. And then slowly start to press yourself back up to hands and knees. Maybe you shake out the arms a little bit, right? It's surprisingly challenging, that pose, when you keep it active. Okay, come back to center. Now you're welcome to stay moving through cat and cow or hands and knees. If downward facing dog isn't going to work for you, stay. Otherwise, with your hands spread nice and wide, tuck the toes, lift your hips up, downward facing dog. Now, if this is the first one of the day, feel free to pedal the heels, even if it's not. Even if you've been doing down dog all day, pedal your heels, move if you'd like to. Maybe wag your tail a little bit from side to side here, getting into the side body. That can feel really great. In fact, let's all do that. So bend your knees and then shift your heels to the left, all 10 toes to the right, and then lift your right hip up a little bit more. And then come back to center. right? Knees bent as we do this, and then heels go to the right, all 10 toes to the left. Lift that left hip a little bit more up to the sky. And then come back to center. Check out your hands, your palms, make sure they're nice and wide, and then press the floor away from you a little bit more. So it's always good to activate, to warm up the shoulders and the shoulder girdle before we start stretching it. And then bend your knees, look forward. On your exhale, take as many steps as you need to come into your standing forward fold. You might use blocks, bringing the floor up to you underneath your hands. Maybe you want a little bit more support today and rest your elbows on your knees or thighs. You could clasp opposite elbows with hands, getting more traction through the spine. Really, wherever you need to go today. You could sway a little bit from side to side. Maybe nod your head yes. Shake your head no. Let your head hang heavy, neck long. All right. Release your hands and with fingertips to your shins or blocks or the earth. Inhale, little partway lift. Belly button to spine, wrap the shoulder blades toward each other. Exhale, let it all go. Couple more. You can sigh or flutter your lips. And then bend your knees, head heavy, arms heavy. Slowly start to roll up to standing. Knees bent the entire time. Chin tucked into your chest. So we're not lifting like this. We're not troglodytes. And keep the chin tucked as you roll up to standing. Not that any of you are troglodytes, but it's that sort of caveman position. So little wiggle, shake out, little rotation through the hips. All right, now grab your strap or your dowel or whatever you're using. And if you don't have anything like that today, that's fine. I'll give you options. Okay, so taking as wide of a grip as you can to start with. Again, if you don't have anything to hold on to, don't worry about it. Just take your arms wide like me. So you want it more or less at your hip crease to start with. That's usually a good place to start. And then I'm going to show you from the side. On your inhale, lift your arms up to the sky. Now, as soon as we do this, we kind of start to dump into the low back. Now, I'm exaggerating, but I want you to squeeze the bum, knit your low ribs into the pelvis so that the posture stays tall. Now, you might slowly start to come back a little bit here. Again, without dumping into the low back. Maybe you pause here, getting that opening through the chest and shoulders. Maybe you slowly start to lower it all the way down. Now from here, if you know that it's going to feel super gnarly to bring it back up, then let go with one hand, bring it forward, and then just do front to back. Otherwise, start to bring it all the way back up and forward. So a few of these, this is called shoulder flossing. And it's a really, really great exercise for starting to get into a little bit of shoulder mobility, but it also warms them up a bit, right? Imagine if you're a weightlifter, you want to be able to maintain this sort of position with hundreds of pounds or kilos over top of your head. Now, if you feel like, I'm feeling something, but it could go deeper, then start to narrow your grip a little bit more, and that'll get deeper into the chest and shoulders. Again, nice posture. Try not to let the chest and the low back pop. Squeezing the bum is the key there. Once more. And then shake it out a little bit. Awesome work, right? Even if you don't have something to hold on to, you can still do those big shapes. Okay, let's narrow the grip now a little bit more. So more like shoulder width or outer shoulder width apart, like your downward facing dog width. If you don't have a strap or a dowel, you're just going to hang on to one wrist at a time. Okay, inhale, lift up, find that posture again so we're not popping or dumping through the low back. Lift a little bit taller as you exhale. Send your weight to the right, but reach over to the left. So now we're getting into the right side of the body. Pull down with that bottom arm as you resist with the top arm. Whew, getting into that top armpit. Little buoyancy on the knees, right? I don't care so much what the legs are doing. We really want to get into the upper body through the chest, the shoulders. Maybe you scoop that bottom arm under a little bit more to lift the top one up and back. Or maybe you choose to bend the knees, tuck the tailbone under around through the spine, and pull a little bit more to the top left edge of the mat. And again, you can do all of this just holding your hands clasped or holding one wrist. Last couple breaths, wherever feels good for you. And then inhale, come back up to center, shake out the arms. Oh, that feels good. We haven't done this in a while. I can always tell based on how my body reacts to a certain movement. All right, come back to your starting position and then inhale up. Nice posture. Belly button to spine. Inhale here, lengthen a little bit more. Exhale, hips to the left, arc over to the right. Now again, ease in and out of it. I've got a little bit of an injury on this top shoulder, so I might go in a different place than I did on the first side. Maybe you pull down with that top one as you resist, or pull down with the bottom as you resist with the top arm. Maybe you just pull both over to the right a little bit more. You could scoop that bottom arm under to lift the top arm up a little bit more. Or maybe bend the knees, tuck the tailbone round through the spine. Right? Different sides could need totally different stretches. Last couple breaths on this side. If you feel pain, back out of it. Pick a variation that will work for you that is pain-free. And that's as much a reminder for me as it is for you. Okay, inhale. Come back to center. Shake out your arms. Oh, little round. Couple loops of the shoulders. Awesome. Okay, now bring the strap behind you or the dowel or whatever you're using. If you don't have anything, you can just clasp your hands together. Maybe palms come toward each other and elbows stay bent. Or if that sort of hyperextension of the elbows works for you, you can do that. It's not like the best thing to do though, right? Hyperextension of the joints. Okay. If you're using a strap or a dowel like me, I want you to bring the palms facing forward to start with, and hands maybe a little bit like outer hip width to start with. And then wrap your elbows, your shoulder blades toward each other, a little bend in the knees, belly button to spine. As you exhale, start to fold forward. Keep the strap or the dowel on your low back, or if your hands are clasped, just keep them on the low back. Now, from here, make sure you haven't totally collapsed into it. So keep wrapping the shoulder blades toward each other, elbows toward each other. From here, maybe start to lift your hands, your dowel, or your strap up and away from your spine. Now again, make sure the shoulders aren't dipping forward. Right? Wrap the shoulder blades toward each other to keep this quite active. Now you might choose to widen your grip a little bit or take it narrower. You could sway a little bit from side to side, getting, into the hamstrings as well as the chest and shoulders. Keep squeezing the shoulder blades toward each other. And then slowly on your exhale, bring the strap or dowel or your hands back to the low back. Quick break. And then let's switch the grip if it feels okay for you. So now we're going to be palms facing up. If you're using just your hands, then take the opposite interlacing of your fingers. Okay, get the activations going again. So shoulder blades, elbows wrapped toward each other. Then maybe start to lift the strap or the dowel or your hands away from the low back. Again, you might sway a little bit from side to side. It's different, right? Between palms facing up or down, it stretches different muscles. Stretches them in a different way. So go where you need to go. And then slowly bringing the dowel back or strap to the back, and then ditch it off to the side or behind you. Release your arms. Little sway from side to side, or a little bounce. And then fingertips to shins. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, let it go. Charge your legs. Inhale, sweep all the way up to the sky. Whole hamstrings. Exhale, hands to prayer. Whew, we were in that forward fold for a long time. So sometimes your muscles don't want to engage quite so quickly. Okay, bring your palms to your sacrum or your low back. Fingertips pointing down. Little bend in the knees. Squeeze the bum. Wrap the elbows, the shoulder blades toward each other. So this might be where you stay for your back extension from a standing position. A really great place to stay. Or maybe you press the hips forward and lift your heart up even more, coming into more of a back bend. Now you might choose to stay here in a supported variation. Some of you might clasp your hands and slide the knuckles down your back. Wherever you are, squeeze the bum so that you're not cranking into the low back. Shoulder blades wrap toward each other. And then inhale, come all the way back up. Exhale right away, release into your forward fold. Little wiggle or sway. And fingertips to shins. Inhale, little partway lift. Exhale, let it go. Bend your knees, come down to hands and knees. And here, a little wiggle or cat and cow. And then let's move into child's pose. So probably knees wide if you want. It gets into the hips a little bit more. If you'd like to work into the low back, then bring the knees together. You'll find more compression in the belly. And then slowly start to release your forehead toward the earth. Again, this is a great place to bring a block underneath the forehead or a pillow underneath your torso to give yourself a little bit more lift. If your hips are quite high up, you could always bring the pillow or the block between your heels and your bum for a bit more support. And then you might leave your arms extended here. You might bend elbows. I really like kind of cupping the front of my shoulders with my palms, like in a kind of like chicken wings. You could wrap your arms back around behind you. Just take the moment to let the breath settle, to let the body recover from those quite deep stretches for the hamstrings and the shoulders. And then slowly start to press yourself back up enough that you can slither forward onto your belly. Slither or walk, however you need to come down. And then a little wiggle of your hips from side to side. Take your left arm out to the side here, and then bring your right fingertips to the floor. Now, this is a really great place to have a thin pillow underneath your head. We're going to get into the chest and shoulders here a little bit more, just to the front. And then start to press into your right hand to push yourself rolling over top of that left shoulder. Now, go slowly. Right? Maybe you pause, depending on how much tension you feel on the front of the shoulder. Maybe you want to deepen it a bit, so bend the top knee. And then bring the sole of the foot to the floor behind you, kind of like a kickstand. Maybe even that right arm starts to drape behind the low back. Right? Pausing wherever you need to pause along that route so that you can take the time to get into this chest and shoulder opener but in a gentle way. Now, for some people, it's going to feel best to have the arm extended at the elbow. Some people will want to bend the elbow. Just depends on where you need to go. Last couple breaths here. And then as slowly as you came into this, start to unwind using the support of your hands. Come back to center. Pause if you can without even moving that left arm for a couple breaths. Letting the fascia rebound. Maybe even the blood flow come back. And then when you're ready, we'll set up for the opposite side. So right arm goes out to the side. Come up onto the fingertips on your left hand. And then start to roll yourself over top of the right shoulder. Now again, go slowly, right? Maybe you're only opening up a little bit today, and that's totally fine. Maybe go a little bit deeper, or bend the knee of that top leg and bring the sole of the foot behind you for a bit more support. You could also drape that left arm back behind the low back. So it all depends on how tight you are to the chest and shoulders, how long those muscles are generally anyway in your body. Right? Just because a yoga teacher gets somewhere doesn't mean that you have to get there, or maybe you go even further than they do, and it doesn't matter. Again, so long as you're moving in a pain-free range of motion. Last few breaths here. And then slowly start to unwind. Taking your time to come back to center. Again, pause if you can without moving that right arm for a couple breaths. And then when you're ready, make your way onto your back. Once you're down, hug your knees into your chest and take a little rock from side to side. And then take your knees wide out toward your shoulders or armpits. You might choose to stay here or kick your feet up to the sky for happy baby. You could grab the backs of the thighs, pulling them in toward you, maybe the legs, ankles, or the feet. Generally, it's easier if your arms are between your legs rather than trying to reach around the outside of your legs. Take a little rock from side to side. And then think about where you would like to go for your rest today. You could be flat on your back, legs bent or straight in Shavasana. You might choose to end in the same place where we began in supported fish, whether you have a pillow underneath your back and your head or you use those two blocks. Might feel nice to rest on your side or in child's pose or simply in a seated meditation. So wherever you need to go. And there's no rush to get there. But once you have found your pose of rest, for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose. Exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more. And then let go of your breath control. Return to your natural breath. Let go of any last muscle gripping or tension that you might have. Could be in your face, your jaw, or your neck. So that with each exhale, your body melts a little bit deeper into the earth. And thoughts may come and go. Acknowledge them, but let them go. Let them drift by you like leaves on the wind. And stay here longer if you can, 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste.